Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are getting up and feeling great out there this morning, having a great start to your day, and a great week out there so far. I got you an update on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Tuesday, and then for the second half of the video, we'll give you an update on the tropics with Hurricane Tammy still out there, and then we'll kind of give you some brief information on some model run guidance for later into this weekend into early next week. So we know what's coming right in front of us. It's already began. Storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest as I speak right now. This will bring snow across the northern Rockies, across the northern plains, and eventually you'll have another wave of moisture that moves in. At the same time, Arctic air will be sagging further south very slowly. This could bring more snow for Wyoming, deeper into the Dakotas, maybe even South Dakota. And then even after that, like I said, we'll have to watch later into this weekend, early next week. Could we get some winter weather as far south as Denver, the Central Plains? I mean, dare I say even into like the panhandle of Texas. So we need to figure some things out. This Arctic boundary, this cold air is going to be with us for the foreseeable future. It's just seeing how far south it gets, how far east it gets. Does it moderate some? I think it will. But we got a lot to figure out with this, but we're going to really focus in on today. What kind of impacts are we expecting today weather-wise? And then we'll continue to get you guys updates and fine-tune the details moving forward. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Ever consider joining the channel? I have 40 incredible members that support me unconditionally, and thank y'all so much. But if you ever wondered how can you help with the channel, that's a great way to do it, is to join the channel. Finding the join tab on mobile is very difficult. A lot of times you gotta jump on a desktop computer. But reach out if you are interested. If not, it's totally cool. I thank y'all for the family-like atmosphere. It's always awesome just seeing the same people comment every single morning, making this part of the routine. And just welcome to any new viewers. It's a very family-like atmosphere here. We look out for one another, and more importantly, we pray over one another's prayer requests. And with that being said, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or anybody else can pray over, all of us can pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to do that, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's slow it down. I'm talking about 112 miles per hour this morning, kind of jacked up, feeling well. Hope you guys are too. So let's get rolling here. All right, we got this. If you look down here, kind of like this area right down here, looks like it's in like areas of Mexico and kind of Southern California. That is a mid-level low. This is making its way and will continue to make its way kind of into the Arizona, the Mexico region. This is helping to aid in a moisture return into New Mexico, into areas of Texas. This will provide a severe weather threat for areas of extreme, kind of southeastern areas of New Mexico later today into western Texas. Will continue to aid in the transport of moisture across the south central U.S. You see the wider colors right here on the wider vapor loop. That is symbolizing more moisture in the atmosphere. At the same time, you just have an area of kind of elevated showers and storms up here in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region. This is actually some storm action ongoing this morning in Wisconsin. This is racing off very quickly, and we will most likely have even more moisture that develops a little bit later today. At the same time, you also have a big storm system making its way this morning into the Pacific Northwest. Already moisture that will begin to kind of become amplified later on today, this morning across Montana, and even extreme, the northern counties of North Dakota. This will fall in the form of snow, or some Arctic air is beginning to very slowly ooze down to the lower 48. But this is our big system right here. You can kind of see the more wider colors on your screen. This is a lot of moisture that's about to move into the Pacific Northwest, and associated with is you got this giant trough, this Arctic boundary that's kind of digging down. This will continue to, I keep using the word ooze because it's like bleeding. It's very slowly just kind of sinking southward, if you will, and we'll continue. That'll basically be the common theme over the next several days. This is not a quick moving cold front. It might pick up speed like a week from today, but this is a very slow kind of bleed, kind of southeastward, if you will. So that's what's going on. The rest of the eastern U.S. is pretty quiet. It's actually downright cold in areas of the Carolinas, Virginia, like the Mid-Atlantic this morning. Some areas have made it all the way down to the freezing mark. So that's what's going on based off water vapor loop. Let's get this off your screen. I can hear my kids kind of on the other side of the wall talking very loudly. So if you hear a screech or something in this video, it's just my kids. What's been awesome is, I don't know if anybody viewing has has ever had two kids or do have two kids around the same age and they're younger, it seems I have two little girls, one the age of 6 and one the age of 8, and a lot of times they fight, but it seems like that they're starting to get along a lot more these days. It's been awesome just to kind of watch from a distance, just watching them play with each other more. But I know there's always going to be fighting and things like that, especially with sisters. But it's been really cool watching them play with each other more lately. But I know that could change in a very quick amount of time. But anyways, looking at what's falling out there rain-wise, a lot of heavy rain in Wisconsin. I'm waking up to a very rainy morning, maybe even stormy morning up here in the Green Bay region. A little bit of rain in the southern UP of Michigan. This rain will cross over Lake Michigan into northern Michigan. A little bit of shower activity falling in New York State this morning, and then a big plume of moisture here in northern Texas and taking over a large portion of Oklahoma. Probably not raining in the panhandle of Oklahoma, but there's a lot of rain falling in areas, especially southern Oklahoma this morning. Some light rain falling in northern areas of Arkansas. Let me know if this rain's hitting the ground in southern Missouri. I think I've had a couple people tell me southern Missouri is getting rather dry. And this shows some light rain falling in Tennessee, northern Mississippi, and Alabama. I doubt that's actually hitting the ground. You guys will have to let me know. A little bit of shower activity in South Dakota, North Dakota, and we got some showers, a little bit some downpour action in New Mexico and Arizona. But here comes the big system entering the Pacific Northwest. You're starting to see it on radar now. By the time we get about 6 to 8 hours from now, you're going to see a lot more moisture on radar in Washington and Oregon, even into Idaho. So that's what's falling right now. Let's look at the Storm Prediction Center. There's 2 areas to watch. These could upgrade to a slight risk as of now, as of about 7 a.m. Eastern time. These are just 2 kind of bimodal marginal risk, level 1 out of 5 risk. There is a very small tornado risk down here, just west of Midland, kind of tucked into the extreme southeast corner of New Mexico and extreme western areas, the western counties, a few counties here in Texas. Everybody else not below a 2% risk of a tornado threat up here. I think these storms will be more elevated up here in the northern kind of mode, but the wind threat just a 5% risk in each area. Hail threat 5% risk in each area. I don't think it'll be a big threat of severe weather today, but there certainly will be a chance of severe storms. Kind of in the same area that you have the risk of strong to severe storms, you have a risk of flooding. There's a slight risk, which is basically, I guess you would say, a level 2 out of 5 risk of excessive rainfall guidance being met. So this means in the yellow area, there's at least a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in any given location. So let's watch out for these areas for flash flooding. If you're in these yellow areas, could get a lot of rain pretty quick today. Maybe a few inches of rain is possible. Watches and warnings. So you're littered with it up here in the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, even the northern plains. You now have winter storm watches up for a lot of counties, pretty much all of northern North Dakota and especially northwest North Dakota, where I think many counties will get over 8 to 12 inches of snow, if not more in some areas. Winter storm watches up for the western counties of Montana, the kind of the most southeastern counties of Montana, 3 counties to be exact. No alerts right now, but that could change here in the next day. Winter storm warnings up. Things are about to crank up here in Montana and then eventually crank up here in the Yellowstone National Park area. You got freeze watches here in this blue, this light colored blue. Winter weather advisories here in the purple, and then we got more winter storm warnings up for the higher elevations of northwest Washington state. Flood watches up. I said last night I thought this would expand. It did not. But so has a chance to. We got a flash flood warning ongoing here in this county and Texas, but a lot of rain is going to continue to fall in Oklahoma and Texas. And dense fog advisories in the Bayou of Louisiana. So winter is about to take over fully up here in the northern Rockies, northern plains, Pacific Northwest. Let's talk about the southeast first, and we'll talk a little bit more on that as we work our way from east to west throughout this video. Not a whole lot going on for our friends here in the eastern U.S. High pressure really dominating, centered right over sort of southeastern Virginia, northeastern North Carolina. A lot of sinking air, no winds, and that is why some of your coldest air in the eastern U.S. right now is actually over northeast North Carolina, southeast Virginia, If you're viewing and you're in Raleigh, maybe points east, like the Richmond area, chances are you're deep into the 30s this morning. And that is because high pressure is right overhead. And if you're right near high pressure, there's no winds. If you get winds on a cold night, it doesn't allow for the cold to really get as, I guess, cold as what it might be forecast to do so. Sometimes winds can really bust a forecast for low temperatures on the warm side. What happens basically is you get winds and it mixes up the atmosphere, and it basically pushes warm air in the upper levels of the atmosphere down to the surface. Happens a lot. I've seen it happen here in my neck of the woods. We've gotten down to about 40 degrees this morning here in Columbia, South Carolina. Pretty chilly. Chilliest morning of the season so far. We have not hit the upper 30s yet, at least not in my neck of the woods. But anyways, I'm rambling at this point. No real moisture. We could get some showers to get pushed into the eastern shores of Florida. And then as we're moving into the evening hours, not a whole lot going on. Just the chance of some showers that could push into the east coast of Florida, the coastal regions of Georgia, and maybe even the low country of South Carolina. We could be waking up tomorrow morning with some sprinkles in Georgia, low country of South Carolina, very possible. But not a whole lot going on in the southeast. The northeast, we're dealing with that shower activity that has moved into the New York State region. The leftovers of this could push into Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and southern New England, but not a big storyline at all. We continue to move forward. Quiet afternoon, quiet evening. And then as we're getting into the wee hours of the morning, some showers could kind of make their way through northern Maine. And then as we're waking up tomorrow morning, we got some moisture that you can see off to our west in southern Ontario, the Great Lakes region. This will likely begin to kind of affect the northern sections of the Northeast. But today, a relatively quiet day, not a whole lot going on for our folks up in the Northeast. Now, the South Central U.S., it's a different story. We got a lot of rain falling in certain areas of Oklahoma, Texas this morning. This will continue. We make our way to about lunchtime, and most of this rain is falling in areas of Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas. We got rain making its way into the Kansas City area. Rain falling maybe just north of the Oklahoma City area, but this rain could very well be a little bit further east, a little bit further west. We got some downpours falling in central Texas. We need some rain. We need some rain in this area of Texas right in here. We really need it right here, kind of in east central Texas, but it looks like most of it's going to be west of this area. These areas are in the worst drought that you could have, which is an exceptional drought, D4 drought. We need rains to fall in these areas. We certainly need to rain in Louisiana, but we're just not going to get it yet. That could change later on in the period. But we keep moving into this afternoon. A lot of this rain begins to take over areas of sort of western and northern Missouri. Some heavier rains could fall in southeastern areas of Kansas throughout the afternoon, evening hours. Then we got some more heavier rains starting to move in, maybe in the form of storms, into areas of central Oklahoma, maybe even eastern Oklahoma. And then it gets kind of quiet in Texas, I think. And then we get some storms. So you could get going here in New Mexico. Now, there is a little bit of a tornado threat with this. Okay, you got a very small tornado risk here if you live in southeastern New Mexico at extreme western Texas, like in this little area right here. Okay, some storms start to kind of fly out of Mexico, and then if you live deep down here in southwestern Texas, later on tonight, like late evening, kind of around the midnight time frame, we could get some big storms that turn more into a linear threat. At the same time, heavier rain still falling in northern Missouri. And then this continues, if you live in kind of the Midland, Odessa region, you could get some late night boomers tonight for sure, and some storms are possible even up here a little bit further north up into the panhandle of Texas. And we keep this going, and we're waking up tomorrow morning to another round of heavier rain, kind of like what we're dealing with this morning. And then some kind of heavier rain is possible here in southwestern Oklahoma. Rain's falling and developing here in north central areas of Missouri. So a lot of rain kind of scattered about out here in the south central U.S., a lot of little small areas to talk about. But rainfall between now and the next 24 hours, guys, 1 to 2 inches of rain is possible. Kind of in west central Texas, if you will, into southwestern Oklahoma, into central Oklahoma. It lessens up a little bit as you get into Kansas, but still somebody could get over an inch of rain in southeastern Kansas today. Kansas City could get a half inch to a 3/4 of an inch of rain. Northern Missouri, maybe over a half an inch of rain between now and the next 24 hours. North Central U.S., kind of active. You started off, we got some storms. The HRR model not doing the best job at picking this up. It does show moisture, but you will continue to deal with a chance of some showers throughout the morning hours, some heavier rain in Green Bay. And then northern Michigan, if you live in this area of Michigan right near here, some rains are possible throughout the morning, early afternoon hours. And then we could get some storms that develop in the southern UP of Michigan. And guys, there's a lot more cold air aloft up here, so I could see some hail falling in this, some elevated action. You could certainly get some hail with some of these storms. So do not be surprised if you get some storms later on this afternoon in areas of the UP, and they are producing some small hail. It's very possible. And then we start to make our way into this afternoon. In northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, we start to get an area of organized storms, kind of around the 2, 3, 4 o'clock time frame. And these will just kind of move almost more so west to east. Therefore, they're going to kind of travel over the same areas for a period of time, and they could deliver a lot of heavy rain. And we're making our way into dinner time, getting into the evening, a lot of heavy rain, some storm action falling in the UP. And even some more storms developing all the way back here in the Minneapolis area, central and north central Wisconsin. And this continues. I mean, even getting into the late evening hours, getting into the overnight hours, rain is still falling. And then another area of rain emerges from the southwest, and I think some light rain falls overnight in Chicago, Milwaukee, and then I think a lot of rain is just going to be kind of scattered about throughout the Great Lakes region in general as we're getting into the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. And then we're waking up tomorrow morning to a quieter period, it looks like, for the Midwest, but still a lot of rain falling across Michigan. But look at the snow beginning to enter kind of the northern sections of North Dakota at this point. Now, as far as how much rain can fall from this today, I mean, an appreciable amount of rain is likely going to fall. Even southeastern sections of Minnesota, over an inch of rain could fall. Right here in the heart of Wisconsin, 1 inch, inch and a half of rain. Extreme southern sections of the UP, inch and a half of rain. But even areas outside this, half inch, 3/4 of an inch, and some a decent amount of rain can fall in extreme northern sections of Michigan. So a lot of rain's going to fall from this. This is all be rain. You might have your chance at snow here in the next several days. We'll talk about that when we need to, when we have higher confidence. Now, speaking of the northern plains, enough cold air is kind of oozed into the northern sections of North Dakota. I'm sorry, I'm hearing my kids laugh right outside my door right now. It's cracking me up. The northern counties of North Dakota, I mean, as early as late morning, early this afternoon, some snow could fall. Enough cold air is kind of oozing into the extreme northern sections of North Dakota to see a little bit of snow later on today. It's very possible. But if you look at our friends here in Montana, some southern sections of the state, not cold enough for snow yet. But this cold air is oozing down, and by the time you get into this evening, snow begins to fall in central Montana. Forgive me for not mentioning towns and communities in Montana, but I normally just label it central, western, or eastern. But you start to see kind of not a convective, but a heavier band of precipitation that really gets going in response to moisture beginning to make its way from west to east. And you start to have the beginning stages of your snowstorm across Montana as we're getting into this evening. And then by the time we're getting into overnight, here is this snow really taking over central Montana, making its way all the way into extreme western sections of North Dakota. And this is around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning tonight. We got a band of snow based off the HRR model stretching across Montana into the western counties of North Dakota, and we continue to get this into tomorrow morning. And at this point, this is really cranking up. Light to moderate snow, maybe at times heavy, really begin to take over a lot of Montana. Not everywhere, but a lot of it. And then we even got some heavier snow falling over here in northwestern sections of North Dakota, where there is a winter storm. Watch up. These could get upgraded to warnings sometime today. So we'll stop it here. We normally only go 24 hours out on this, and we move a little bit further west into our friends here in the Rockies. And just a wider view of what happens later on today. We're getting to this afternoon. Snow begins to break out in northwestern sections of Montana. Those heavier kind of elevations right up here really starts to see a whole lot of moisture. And honestly, the big moisture feed is right in here. This is kind of the first wave right here into Montana. And this is around 9-10 p.m. And a lot of snow begins to take over. It's almost like a pretty broad band of snow that is making its way from west to east across Montana. And then a lot of heavy precipitation begins to take over Idaho, these higher elevations. of those areas that kind of border Idaho and Montana really starting to pick up a lot of snow fast. And you have a very huge area of moisture stretching from the Pacific all the way to North Dakota, kind of making its way across the northern Rockies. And then we're getting into tomorrow morning. And this is when the storm really cranks up and you start to really get the true Arctic air that's kind of bleeding into Montana, Idaho. And this is when the snow begins to fall and really add up with really, really cold temperatures. So kind of a closer look at the Pacific Northwest, including Washington and Oregon. You know, today will be kind of a weird day. I think as we're getting into late morning, we get a lot of heavy precipitation that begins to take over northwestern sections of Washington, these higher elevations right into here, obviously seeing snow at this point. But as we're getting into this afternoon, very heavy, I wouldn't say very heavy, but some pretty moderate to heavy rain begins to take over the western sections of Oregon and Washington. And then, of course, the higher elevations right into here, this is falling in the form of heavy snow. Okay, and this continues. We're starting to get into 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and this is fully taking over Washington and Oregon at this point. A lot of heavy moisture falling. Snow levels are beginning to drop. So even these kind of somewhat lower elevations, I'm not talking about like down to Seattle or anything like that, or Medford or anything, or, you know, Eugene, but some of these lower elevations, you know, that you don't have to be 10,000 feet up or anything like that, begin to see a little bit of snow. Okay, that's why you got winter weather advisories even in some of these somewhat lower elevations. I say lower elevations, I'm not meaning like 1,000 feet. You know, you got to be a little bit higher up than that. But this continues, and we're waking up tomorrow morning, and we're still dealing with a lot of moisture flying through the region. So this is a perfect opportunity just for me to say, stay tuned to your local people when it comes to areas. And I'm not saying please don't listen to me, or I wouldn't even be talking about these areas. But, you know, you got to remember microclimates due to elevation-driven regions. It's always important to listen to your local people as far as where are the snow levels exactly at, because I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly where the snow levels are in every state. I mean, that would be pretty difficult to memorize. But anyways, between now and Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, I mean, the snow is already adding up. It's still snowing at this point, but just between now and tomorrow morning, I mean, you're already seeing several inches of snow adding up across Montana. This is already starting to spread over most of eastern Montana too. Has not quite got cranked up here in Yellowstone National Park or, you know, a little bit further south. I think some snow will eventually even make it into northern Utah. But between now and the next 24 hours, you know, a lot of this is going to fall up in Montana and the higher elevations. Snow beginning to add up in these higher elevations of Idaho. Eventually, this will get down here into the higher elevations of southern Idaho. And then we look at our friends here in Washington, and the snow is going to add up fast as today. Over 2 feet of snow just in the next 24 hours and some of these higher mountain ranges here. But 1 to 2 feet of snow is going to easily happen in some of these areas just in the next 24 hours. It's a big system with a lot of moisture making its way in to the Pacific Northwest. So temperatures today, you know, I keep saying this, guys, but really enjoy these nice temperatures in Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas. I think confidence is even higher in these regions right now more than ever, that eventually this cold air mass is going to ooze into you folks. Now, I don't think you're going to get high temperatures in the 20s and teens, but I think well below average temperatures are eventually going to take over the plains, the Midwest. So enjoy these 70s, these low 80s as much as you can, because I think that this is kind of one of those cold fronts that really could break the back of, dare I say, fall. I mean, you're going to moderate some, but I mean, we're almost in November now. We're running out of time for any kind of warm surges of air all the way up into the Great Lakes, and you're going to see it today. Even in the southern Ontario, temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Western New York State, temperatures in the 60s and even 70s. I mean, nice air all the way up to the Ohio River Valley, all the way up the Mid-South. Somebody might hit 90 degrees in the Deep South today, so enjoy it while you can, guys. But this really cold air is starting to make its way down to the northern Rockies. You had that one last nice day kind of in the high plains. I think you'll still have some nice weather in southeastern Wyoming. But, man, you're running out of time to really get outside, get anything that you need to get done. And you still got one last day. in Montana. I feel like I've said that over the last couple days. You still got one last day in Montana before this takes over, but you're going to be doing it in some pretty cold temperatures. So everybody else down here still hanging on to warm temperatures, but you guys will get into the below average temperatures too eventually. Now, speaking on an update on the tropics, Tammy, 75-mile-per-hour storm, hurricane. We got Tropical Depression 21. This will be the first and only time that I'll mention this. Never had time to become Vince. Has actually moved into Central America. Not a storyline anymore. Tammy could still potentially be a storyline, especially for Bermuda. 75-mile-per-hour hurricane moving northeast at 9 miles per hour. Will hang a loop at some point, lose its tropical characteristics, and could still be a post-tropical storm by the time we get into this weekend and could affect Bermuda. But I wouldn't be worried if you're in Bermuda. I think this will be a weakening system. But of course, we're going to continue to keep tabs on it because it could affect our friends here in Bermuda. But as of now, I'm not expecting this to be a very high impact storm for anybody else. So I've said that before and been wrong, and I'll completely admit it. But, you know, you look at the GFS, it kind of indicates this loop-de-loop. GFS wants this to become a stronger storm before it comes weakened. But before it comes a weaker storm, and it can, and it probably will. But this hangs the loop as we're getting into Thursday evening, heading really close to Bermuda, and it looks like it just kind of fiddles around Bermuda and weakens right on top of Bermuda. Could bring some rain, some gusty winds, and eventually weakens altogether. Okay. I mentioned this, and I talked about it in detail last night. We got this first wave that is moving through kind of right now, and then the second wave is going to move through Montana, and the GFS is indicating the fact that we could have a winter storm. That's why you got winter storm watches up in northern North Dakota. Snow's going to obviously be falling in Wyoming. Okay, we're pretty confident on this, right? Some snow could fall from this even later into the work week, even into northern Minnesota. But here comes a bigger system indicated by the GFS as we're getting into late Thursday into Friday morning. For example, this is the wee hours in the morning, Friday morning, shows a big winter storm across areas of the Dakotas, and even more snow this time for areas further south of Minnesota, but still just mainly northern Minnesota. Not quite south enough to get into kind of northern sections of Wisconsin, the UP, and Michigan, but this brings snow all the way down into Minnesota, into South Dakota. Okay, that moves in. Okay, and then another one moves in. We still got this Arctic boundary sagging south. This would bring, this is Saturday afternoon at this point. Shows a winter storm in the middle of the country, right? Nebraska, areas of Iowa, even a wintry mix as far south as northern Kansas. The models keep showing this. Okay, it was showing this last week, and I was like, it's got to get closer. It's closer now. Okay, so you continue to move this, and look at this wintry mix getting all the way to the panhandle of Oklahoma, northern sections of Texas, and even getting down here. Look at this kind of sleet rain mix down here showing up deep down here and kind of west central Texas, guys. Freezing rain all the way down into southwest Texas as we're getting into 6 days out from now. Shallow Arctic air. Interesting times ahead, guys. And once we get past the winter weather that's going to dominate the northern Rockies, northern plains, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after that. Here comes that next wave right here, winter storm for North Dakota for sure. The GFS and the European do not agree with how far deep south the cold will get, but it does indicate that second or third storm, whatever you want to call it, as we're getting into this weekend, brings an area of moderate snow across South Dakota, light snow across areas of Minnesota, and then shows some snow for Denver all the way through most of Nebraska except southeastern Nebraska. And you keep this going, guys, and it doesn't really show any winter weather for Oklahoma, Texas like the GFS does. But one thing I can tell you now is there goes the Great Lakes snow machine kicking off right at the beginning of November. Something we watch too. There's many things to watch coming up, guys. Well, one thing I will tell you for the eastern U.S., models are really starting to pick up the progression of this cold front making its way all the way to the eastern U.S. and for us to having a chilly start to November. We'll speak on all this here in the coming videos. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.